I saw an article on Facebook linking to this video, and it was said, you won't hear anybody talking about this. And I sort of responded by saying, well, what do you mean? First of all, I normally don't talk about politics, but secondly, I had not even seen this. And so I said, no, I will talk about it because this was troubling. There is a video popped up last week of Judge Roy Moore being interrupted in a well, it looks like a campaign. He's talking about the campaign. So it looks like it's a campaign appearance. It's not. It's a church service. Now, what's going to happen is there's some protester, there's some guy that's going to start yelling, and eventually they're going to get rid of him. And the pastor of the church comes up, and I actually had just seen, sorry about this, I saw the name. It was a Baptist church. It was in Alabama. What do you expect? Looked like some type of Southern Baptist church, looked like a Southern Baptist pastor. And I'm not interested in getting into the names of who it was. I don't know anything about the guy, whatever. But what he said was very troubling to me because he basically said, this is a worship service. This is a worship service. And if you interrupt a worship service, you'll be turned over to cops because that's illegal. Well, then why is Roy Moore up front talking about a political campaign in a worship service? That's not worship. I have, since as long as I can remember, recognized that people on the left have used liberal churches as platform for absurd campaigning and all the rest of this stuff, and just, could care less about the issues raised by that. But here's the right doing exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. And with much less reason. I mean, liberal churches are pretty much just focused on being social justice warriors in the first place, because they got nothing else to do. They don't have a gospel. They don't really believe the Bible. So why, but I would assume, Southern Baptist church. Maybe somebody could look it up and verify for me that it was a Southern Baptist church. I closed the thing and don't have time to track it back down. But assuming it was a Southern Baptist church, or some type of a Baptist church in the South, how do you call this worship? How do you identify having a political candidate behind the pulpit speaking as part of the preaching of the service? That is not worship. If you think that's worship, then we need to have a discussion of what biblical worship is, and the centrality of the presentation of God's word, the centrality of focus upon Him. You can talk about how important all these other issues are if you want to, but don't call that the worship of the eternal God. It's going to have... It's just stunning. So let's take a look at it. And I'll be honest with you, listening to his supporters was scary. He's a man's man. He's a man's man. What does that have to do with what? This was well, it was troubling. So let's take a look. You got it? Okay. Let's take a look at it.
Never once has anyone stated anything like it has occurred in the last 3.5 weeks. That's odd.
The entire town, all the girls are lying.
5 statewide campaigns and 3 county-wide campaigns. We can stop it and get them out, or we can keep going. Let's let him go.
You got this, Judge. You got this. Don't listen to him.
5.
That's a man's man. Does that look like the face of a molester? That's a man's man.
Let me have a word just a minute. All right. Now that the plant is gone, with the IQ of one. I would remind everyone again that this is a worship service. And by the way, it is illegal to disturb a worship service. Now, the next one who makes disturbance will be turned over to the police. Okay. So, as pastor of this church, I'm saying we're going to do these things decently and in order.
Okay, now, decently and in order, in that context of a worship service, would have to do with an actual service of the church. This has come up a lot recently, and I want to point it out yet again. Tried to have a conversation with an individual in Twitter, had actually unblocked him because I had seen some comments he was making, and he actually made the argument. Some young, fire-breathing guy, he actually made the comment that Christian conferences are church services. And I said, well, excuse me, but isn't it rather obvious in the New Testament? You have elders, you have deacons, you have the ordinances of the church, baptism and the Lord's Supper. You have the singing of psalms, you have prayers, you have the reading of scripture, you have church disciplines, so you have organization. These are all things that it's very easy to identify from the epistles, from Acts. What's the issue? How can you identify a conference as a meeting of the church when you don't have anything even close to these? There's no ordinances being. This is not a worship service of the church. There's a lot of confusion as to what the quote-unquote church is, but very little discussion of exactly what the Bible defines as meeting of the church. So someone in channel is saying it was Magnolia Springs Baptist Church. Can someone find out if they are associated with the Southern Baptist Convention? Or if they're independent or whatever, it doesn't matter. I just want to be accurate in the description. Because like I said, I saw it and then I went and closed that. I went upgraded my OS, and every time I do that, I have my favorite Quran program is called Zekr. It just works well for me, but it runs on the old Java stuff. So every time you upgrade your OS, you have to reinstall a legacy version of Java just to run it. And so I had to close everything, and so I lost that, and I'm like, didn't have time to put it back together again. Like I said, I was feeling a little rushed to try to get everything put together. So I look at this, and this is very, very concerning for me, and it should be, I think, concerning for Christians that you would have. I don't care how strongly you feel about Judge Roy Moore one way or the other, or about the issues we need to have. I mean, look at the Supreme Court. We need to have another Republican senator, and it's all about the Supreme Court and all about this type of stuff. And okay, fine, whatever. Someone's saying not listed as an SBC church. So, okay, so it's probably just a independent Baptist church. There's plenty of those. So just your standard down south Baptist church without being part of the Southern Baptist Church. So there you go. Anyway, if anyone's wondering, I am offended that you would call a political rally, even for a conservative, a worship service. I'm offended when I see that being done on the left. I'm offended when I see that being done on the right. That's not a worship service. That's a political gathering. And it needs to be identified for what it is. And I'm not getting into... I will say this. The Roy Moore situation has reminded me once again of how little modern people tend to think tend to think the way that my generation did. Why? A couple things here. First of all, there's something called the statute of limitations, and there's something called innocent until proven guilty. And those are not covers for bad behavior in the past. They are foundations for justice and liberty. Because when you bring something up from 40 years ago, there are no witnesses left. Memories have become corrupted over time. There's no way to do justice. And you see, modern people go, but there has to be, we have to do justice. That's why people are tearing down statues and all the rest of it. Why didn't people do that in the past? Was it because they didn't care? Because they just weren't as smart as modern people? No, it's because they had a Christian worldview and they realized you won't always get justice in this life, but there is a day of justice coming. And so they knew we can make mistakes in this life. Therefore, it is vitally important to have rules, evidentiary rules, innocent until proven guilty, the proper process. Have judges, for example, who have a proper worldview to be able to function. That's where I think our system is. When I say our, I'm sorry for those of you listening outside the United States. That's where I think the United States system is virtually in a state of collapse, is because the judiciary that is supposed to be protecting these things no longer believes in a worldview that makes sense out of these things. And so, have we not known for a long time that guilty men might get away in this life? We've always felt that that was better than the imprisoning of an innocent man. That we can do the best we can with the evidence and the situation we have here, but we always recognized there is a day of justice coming. That's why you'd put that hand on that Bible and you would swear. And you might lie through your teeth, but the point was you're not going to get away with it forever. You might get away with it for now. You might fool us. You might undercut justice in this life, but you're not going to undercut justice in eternity. There's going to be a greater judge, and he knows, and you will be judged. I can see why secularists have to throw liberty and evidentiary rules and justice in that sense out the door to get instant feelings-based justice. I want feelings-based justice. Who is that woman? I don't remember what the name was. But that woman who came straight out, when the accusations, the Matt Lauer stuff and the Weinstein and all this stuff, and Kevin Spacey, and I don't know much about Hollywood other than it's burning down right now. All that kind of stuff. When there was a woman who came out and she just directly said, I would rather have dozens of innocent men's lives and careers ruined than a single perpetrator get away with it. You know why they say that? Because it all has to be done in this life. There is no afterlife in which there's going to be justice, because they don't have a God who's created this world and who sits upon a throne that's based upon justice. So you better do it now. And if innocent people got to get trashed in the process, well, hey, my priorities say that's just fine. Wow. So I do look at that situation. I do not have time right now to be reading all the stuff and going into the stuff about this woman said that. A, no interest, B, no time. I don't live in Alabama. Maybe if I did, I'd have to spend more time on it, but I don't. And so but it's been scary to see how people will just not let the process go. And part of it's their worldview, and part of it's the fact the process is falling apart. Because if you do not have a unbiased, constitutionally bound, honest judiciary, what's left? I don't know. I don't know what's coming. But great will be its fall. Great will be its fall. No two ways about it. If we are not exceptionally careful. Well, exceptionally careful. We're being exceptionally careful. It doesn't matter. There's a lot going on here. So anyways, I can't even name the principals and the accusers, and there's something about a yearbook, and I don't know. All I know is Roy Moore should not have been standing in front of a Baptist church talking about his politics and calling it worship. It's not worship. Don't call it worship. Just don't